Welcome everybody. How many of you were in my session last year? I asked this a little bit and somebody put their hand up. A couple folks. Great. It's always a good sign when folks come back. How many of you have been in training workshops with me? I recognize some folks in the room, so it's nice to see you guys. And a quick question before we start and dive into this topic. How many of you have ever worked with a coach? Business coach, leadership coach, executive coach? How many of you have had a hockey coach, a soccer coach, a piano teacher, science teacher, grandpa, great Aunt Jenny, right? Somebody who provided some insight or guidance or asked you some questions to further your thinking or deepen your insights. And that's really what I've thought to design today around. Welcome to the OCA Symposium. How many of you, this is your first time coming to the symposium? Oh, you're in for a treat. You're going to stick around, right? And go to other sessions and walk the booths and visit the vendors and yeah, network. I think next year I'm going to ask John and Stephanie if I can do a topic on networking and get the 8:30 a.m. spot so that you're armed and ready to go with all those networking tips and tricks. But today we're going to talk about leadership in a picture, and you're going to see a series of pictures. This isn't your typical slideshow presentation. There's very little text, mostly all images, pictures to inspire some thinking, inspire some questions that you could entertain and consider for yourself. Most of these images I took myself, inspiring deeper thoughts into leadership for me personally, as a coach, as a person that works in the leadership development space for my clients. But I thought I would bring them to you and guide your thinking around each picture. I invite you to go wherever the picture takes you and share. I know most folks, no one sat in the front. Oh, somebody sat in the front row. Excellent. Thank you. Typically, no one sits there scared that I'm going to call on them or point them out. Here's what you need to know about me. I will never do that to you. I will never embarrass you. I will never force you to share something you're not comfortable sharing. I will ask, probably preface it, completely voluntary, but would anyone like to share or do that? So to deepen your own insights and others, feel free if you're comfortable to share, to interrupt me even. That's fair game as well. So I'm going to guide your thinking around the picture. If something different or unique comes up for you, others, as I mentioned, might benefit from your insight, so feel free to interrupt at any time. How many of you here today have direct reports? You're in a supervisory, managerial position. There's actually human beings listed under your name on your company's org chart? Yeah, saw a bunch of folks. How many of you are here as individual contributors to your organization, so you don't have any direct reports, anybody that you're necessarily supervising? Okay. I want you guys to think about leadership from the context of how you're providing that leadership to your colleagues, to your business partners, to your stakeholder groups, to the other folks in this industry that you work with along side by side. How many parents in the room? Moms and dads? Yeah, you automatically leaders to your children, or should be. This isn't a parenting workshop, but I'm told many times that the work that we do in leadership transfers directly into how we show up at home for our children or for our nieces or nephews if you don't have kids, or even for our partners or our spouses. So where you want to take this is up to you, okay? So some of you here today may have those direct reports, some may not. Some of you are running your own organization. Some of you might work for an organization. Some of you might be in line for that big promotion. Some of you might be trying to elevate your leadership skills to put yourself in that spot to get that next big promotion. Some of you may be further down the road in your career projection than others sitting in this room. Regardless, I propose that all of you sitting here today are leaders currently. You're not waiting to become a leader. You're all sitting here as leaders today. Leaders in your respective roles, leaders in your respective tasks, leaders in your organization, leaders for our industry, and leaders for our communities. So my name is Jenny West Correa. I am a certified facilitator, a certified executive coach, a seasoned trainer, and independent senior leadership consultant with a company called Stratford Group. I run my own leadership development business, and Stratford Group has hired me as an independent contractor. So I bring to you over 25 years of experience specifically in the construction sector. I've spent my entire working career in our beautiful, wonderful industry. And so I have a deep passion for developing and coaching construction professionals like yourselves. Over those years, I've had the opportunity to collaborate with hundreds and hundreds of leaders, both in and out of construction sectors. I do some work outside of construction, but construction's the best. Don't tell them I said that. On how to elevate and transform the leaders that we are so that we can get the best and most out of our people. If we stop and think about what's the point, right? What's the point of your role? What's the point of why you work where you work? What's the point for all the work that you do in those roles, those projects you're on, the departments you're in, the assignments you're working on? And we go right down to the very end. What does success mean in those areas? In construction, I always think there's 4 things that are the same, whether you're a GC, a trade, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what are we trying to do? Doesn't matter if you're a super, a PM, the owner, an accountant. At the end, let's just be honest. Yep. Build value. Usually it's aligned with something that's of good quality, right? Which then contributes to our reputation and perhaps repeat business and all those great things. I saw another hand back here. Motivate. That's interesting that one came up. Usually that's not one that comes up right away. Usually we get right down to business and it's like, this is why we exist. This is what we're trying to do. Oh, that's another good one, like motivating. I love this. You guys are already elevated. Course is over. Get out, right? Yeah. Make money, right? At the end of the day, we're trying to make money, right? When I think of the 4 pillars of success in construction, and I love that we already went the next layer with motivation and relationships, is we're here to make money. We're here to meet our schedules, build stuff that's on time. We're here to produce high quality value. And we're here to make sure that every single person goes home safe, right? And when I think of construction and I think of our industry and I think of what success means, those 4 things rise to the surface. But I beg to differ that there's some extra things we should be doing. Okay? So all of this, when you think about the leader that you show up in, is to how am I showing up so that I can contribute to those 4 pillars and these extra things that we're going to dive a bit deeper into. So I ask today you trust the process. You allow yourself this time. You're here. You signed up for my session. There were some other fantastic options at 8:30 this morning, so I appreciate you coming. So dig deep today. Think of today, this next 45 minutes that we have together, as you having your own personal coach, but just in a really large group setting, okay? So I invite you, if you have a notepad, if you want to take out your phone and capture some notes on your phone, I encourage you to do that, okay? If something resonates with you, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. These are questions that you don't have to answer out loud, but I really encourage you to answer them inside today while you're here. Okay? Dig deep, take something away from today, take an action with you that you will implement when you leave here so that you can evolve the leader that you are. So let's start. I got 6, 7 images up here. I want you to look at these pictures, okay? If you had to pick one that depicts or represents how you feel you currently are showing up as a leader in whatever role you hold today, which picture would you choose? I want you to look at them and ask yourself, which picture, on a whole, sums up the leader that I am right now, current state? Think of the people you work with right now. Think of your team. Think of just last week, the stage that your project's at, the tasks that you are completing yourself, the tasks you're asking others to complete, whatever went on last week, discussions you had, conversations you had, meetings you led, performance feedback you gave or didn't give. Which image sums up how you feel you show up as a leader? I've only given you 7 choices, right? But do you gravitate to any of these? How come?
Collaborative leadership.
Okay. So you feel you're showing up in a collaborative way and ensuring that others are working together and collaborating? How many else picked one? Okay, same reason, similar reason? Teamwork, okay. Anybody pick a different one that's willing to share? Thank you for just shouting it out. That was awesome. 6? Okay, how come you picked 6?
New at my job, and it's sort of a newish role. So
Okay.
there's growth, there's planning, there's something that might happen in the future that
Okay. So new to role, so growth, planning, trying to create new things, which is what the sprouts kind of signify. Did anybody else choose 6? Okay, same reasons, similar reasons? Yes?
Mine's a bit different. I chose 6 because trying to build a frameworks within the company that we can build value upon.
Yeah, so trying to establish that framework so that we can align value to that and build upon that. That's great. Anybody choose another one that they're willing to share? I'm not going to go through all 7, don't worry. I just take another suggestion, another idea. Anybody choose 3 that's willing to admit 3? Anyone? 3? Anyone ever feel like 3 in their leadership? Be honest. Anyone? I was 3 this morning with my daughter. Anybody? Okay. Anybody choose 5? 7? 7? We're goalie parents, right? Who picked 7? How come? Likes to have his team feel secure. Okay. I saw another hand somewhere. Yep. Always playing D. Right. Yeah. Goalies love their D, right? Okay. Anybody pick 2? I was 2 for a very long time in my leadership, if I was being honest. If I was really being honest in choosing the leader I was showing up as, I was 2. Right? Anybody ever feel like an imposter? Like in your private recesses where no one knows, you're like, holy shit, like how am I a leader? How am I in charge of all this stuff? I can't do this. Anybody ever feel that way? Just me? Okay, thank God. Whew. Right? So, any 4s? I lied, I went through all 7. Any 4s? Anybody just feel like they're nailing it? They're killing it? They got it? Anybody feel like that sometimes? Yeah. So, this is kind of the start of this, what I'm calling, I hate using this term because most people, especially in our industry, cringe when I say it, self-reflection, right? And I know, the elevated leader is highly self-aware. And to become self-aware, we have to be self-reflective. We have to stop and think, right? We have to contemplate what we're doing, why we're doing it, how it went, how it could be better, how we're showing up, right? I always joke that I'm not in the remedial leadership training business. I don't take broken, shitty leaders and try and make them good. I work with great leaders, good leaders, awesome leaders, and try to elevate and make them even better. And I think one of the big differentiators between a good leader and a great leader and an amazing leader is the level of self-awareness that leader has. Has anybody worked for the leader that had like 0 self-awareness? And you're like, how do they not see it? They think they're awesome and everyone else is rolling their eyes. Has anybody worked for that person? Right. And do you correlate the effectiveness of their leadership to the fact that they were like extremely not self-aware? Right. Okay. So this is just kind of a taste of kind of the thinking I want you to do in the next few minutes while we're together. Ask yourself before I change this slide, how did you choose your image? If I was to ask the folks that you lead and that experience your leadership to choose the image on your behalf, do you think they would pick the same one? Do you think they'd choose something different? Do you think they'd paint their own picture? Right? And so that's a good question to ask yourself, is how aligned is my view of myself with the view of the folks that I'm interacting with and leading? Okay? So these are my new glasses. They're progressive lenses. I'm officially old now that I have glasses that do double duty. Glasses that allow me to see things up close, and also glasses, the same pair, that allow me to see things far away. Notice I'm not wearing them right now. When you look at yourself from a distance, what do you see? When you consider how others perceive you, what do you think they see? When you look at yourself up close, deep down, actually contemplate and ask these questions. Is it the same? Does it line up? Are they different? Are you the kitty cat looking in the mirror and you see the lion, right? So I'm going to use my super fancy scale of 1 to 10. 1 is I suck, I'm awful, I'm horrible. Garbage. 10, I'm perfect, I'm amazing, I'm a rock star. And I'm going to ask you to rate yourself on that scale. Don't worry, you don't have to shout out your number. You don't have to say what number you are, but I want you to be super honest. When you think of yourself as a leader, so this is the same idea what we just did with the pictures, rate yourself on that scale, 1 to 10. Current state. 1, I suck. 10, I'm perfect. Right? If you were forced today to give yourself a number on that scale, what number would you assign yourself? This is personal, right? Be honest. Any 10s? Don't be shy. Any 10s in the room? Perfect leaders right now. Okay, look around. What do you see? Other than me, which isn't true. No 10s, right? So what does that say? What does that tell us right now, just in this room with these leaders, what does that tell us? All room for growth, nobody perfect. Is there such a thing as the perfect leader? No, how come? Even if on Wednesday between 8 and 9, Jenny, I'm a 10. I am nailing it. I just had this amazing meeting. I just had this hard talk with my employee and it went great and they totally understood. They actually thanked me. This is going great. Everything's lined up on schedule, on budget. Everything's perfect, 10. And then what happens in the next half hour, right? And what's that reality, especially in our industry, that happens that's preventing us from being 10s all the time? Yes. Yeah, and change, right? We're an industry of change. So to maintain this perfect image is ridiculous. It's never going to happen, right? So this striving for 10, get rid of it. But think of your number right now, whatever number you picked. I'm a 3. I'm a 5. I'm a 6, on a good day a 7. I'm a solid 8, but when Fred shows up, I drop to a 2. Can't stand that guy, right? So whatever number you picked, ask yourself right now, is there a desire to move that up 1 notch, right? If the answer is no, that's fair. Leave, right? Because this is really around evolving and elevating the leaders we are today. There are, I'm sure, guaranteed, and I know some people in this room that are solid 8s, 9s. They are putting in the work, but they stay. They come to the training, they hire a coach because they want to keep evolving. They want to be the best they can for their teams. So how did you come to that number? Again, same question like the pictures. What's it based on? Is it based on your own view of yourself? Is that view skewed? Is it based on feedback? Feedback you've asked for, feedback that you've been given by your direct reports, by your supervisors, by your trade partners, right? When's the last time you asked the trade that you work alongside for feedback on how you could be doing better for them, right? So this idea around making sure that our view of ourselves and our leadership lines up with reality, right? I remember the best thing, and some people in this room know my husband and know my family. I remember years ago, my husband and my daughter were doing a lot of this because they're basically the same person, and hitting heads and butting heads constantly. And they got into a situation where, of course, and if you have teenagers, you'll know where the kid runs off to the room, slams the door. I think, I hate you. This is the worst family in the world, was shouted, right? Husband went off to the garage to be by himself. And then my husband came up and said, no, I know what I'm going to do. And I'll never forget, he walked down to my daughter's room, knocked on the door, and I heard him say, I'm going to ask you one question. Don't answer it now. But when you're ready, come get me. We're going to go for a drive. And I'm like, literally, I had like the water glass at the door, trying to give them space, but wanted to hear what he said. And he said, I want you to answer this question for me. How can I be a better dad to you? Then he walked away. And my jaw dropped. I was like, what the? And then about 10 minutes later, my daughter went down to the garage. I saw the truck back out the driveway. They were gone for like an hour. They came back. They both ignored me. They both went their separate ways. And I was like, what the hell? Like, I need to know what happened, right? And I finally found my husband and said, what did she say? And he said, she just told me that I don't listen. She told me that I interrupt. I always tell her, give her my advice, tell her what to do, and I never ask. And I thought, this is why I married you, right? But this is that idea around getting that feedback to elevate the person that we are. And I think in that moment, that was an opportunity for my husband to elevate the dad he was showing up as. Is it perfect now? No. No. Is this still happening? Yeah. But is my husband listening better? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm fortunate to live on a beautiful piece of property. I'm on 30 acres with lots of trails and forests and very inspiring views that I try to walk every day. I try to walk it multiple times a day if I can. And so I want to ask you, on those walks is where I have dedicated time to really think right? And to spend some time reflecting. I think if you're going to hire me as your coach, you probably want a coach that does what they're encouraging you to do. And so I really try to carve out that time to do that for myself. But you don't need a trail in the forest to do this. You can do this right now, sitting here. Okay? And so the question is, it all starts with mindset. And when I ask you, what is your leadership mindset? What comes to mind? What does it mean to you to be a good and effective leader? And that starts to formulate what your mindset is. I'm going to put some questions up, and I want you to contemplate them. I want you to, if an answer pops in your head, I want you to jot it down. I want you to type it in your phone. Think about this. What is your purpose? And don't say to make money. We already know that. Those are the 4 key things. Let's go deeper, like build relationships. I forget what this gentleman said. Build relationships, add value. Motivate, thank you. Right? Trust. What's the goal? What does success look like? Here's my favorite tip, right? And maybe this is what you take away from today. But do you ask yourself what success looks like? I know we do it as construction professionals. We know success of this project is we meet this schedule, we make this much money, we do it under this budget, everybody goes home safe. We do that in construction, right? Because we have those plans, we have the drawings, we have the schedule, we know the contract. If everything gets fulfilled, success, right? But do you ask yourself, what does success look like when this meeting's over? What does success look like when I'm finished this conversation with Fred around his performance that's not going the way it needs to go? Do we ask ourselves that question before we actually engage in whatever it is we're about to do? I don't think my husband asked himself, what does success look like if I go down the hall and ask my kid this question and we come back from our drive? But that's starting to form our mindset. Who is your leadership for? I always joke when people are in my training sessions, I say to them, this actually isn't for you. If you're sitting here as a leader now asking yourself these questions, newsflash, this isn't even for you. Who is this for? Your team, the people you lead, the people you interact with, right? They're going to reap the benefits of you evolving your leadership. And so asking yourself the questions, and these are deep, I know. I'm asking you to do this in 45 minutes, whereas clients spend like 12 months with me. Who do you want to be for others? Who do you need to be for others? Take one person right now on your team that you supervise, that you interact with, and ask yourself the question right now, who do I want to be for them? Right? What do I want them to experience? And here's the biggest question, right? This is it in a nutshell. I think the mindset, the elevated leadership mindset, is asking themselves, how am I creating conditions for success? What am I doing in my day-to-day that is helping that person that I'm thinking of right now be successful so that they can thrive? Just imagine this. What would be the benefit if I'm managing Fred, and I apologize, I think Fred's in the room. Fred's my fake guy. I use him all the time. Sometimes Fred's like shitty employee, so I apologize if there's a Fred here, right? Or if you have a Fred. But if I'm leading Fred, if Fred's my direct report, and I adopt the leadership mindset of how am I every day creating conditions of success so Fred thrives, why would I even want to do that? Let's assume Fred's not a great worker. Let's assume Fred's performance is. Let's assume I don't like Fred. Let's assume Fred frustrates me. Why would the mindset of creating conditions of success for Fred be something an elevated leader would have? What do you think? Yep. Respect, mutual respect. And if there's mutual respect, what's happening? Probably higher engagement, higher motivation. But think about this. What would I benefit as Fred's leader if I took time to think about what would make Fred successful and how can I make sure he's thriving? What happens if Fred thrives? Productivity. And at the end of the day, really, we're construction. We're here to produce, right? So if I adopt this leadership mindset, that my job as the leader, whether I'm the supervisor or not, imagine I'm not a supervisor and I work alongside this trade partner. And let's say I don't like that trade. What happens if I adopt the mindset? What can I do in my communication with that trade, in how I talk to that trade, feedback I give? how I explain things. If I have the mindset, I want that trade to be successful. Because if that trade's on my project and they're successful, what's happening? I'm successful. My project's a success. Parents in the room, you want your kids to be successful, right? It's a risky question. Although I have yet to meet a parent who says, nah, that kid number 2, whatever, I don't really care, right? Of course we do, right? We're constantly as parents creating conditions of success for our children, right? If you're feeding them, if you're clothing them, if you're punishing them, if you're providing tough love, if you're providing unconditional love, you're creating conditions for your kids to be successful, right? It's the same thing in our business world as leaders. So this idea around creating those conditions of success. So for us to really adopt that mindset, we first need to spend time reflecting on just a couple things. And so this strange tree root near a family that lived in Oakville formed when I went for a walk near their house. And I was like, wow, that looks like a footprint. That's really cool. And so of course I couldn't resist putting my foot beside it and taking a picture, right? But the image of that root and that footprint just started conjuring up this idea around leadership mindset. And what it made me think of, who has shaped the leader that you are today? Right? And this is a deep question to consider, right? Who had impact or influence over how you are deciding to show up right now? Was it that amazing leader you had? Was it that hockey coach who just rode your ass and, made you who you are today? Was it that amazing leader that created space for you to thrive, for you to be successful, to be your best, to succeed? Or was it that less than desirable leader that you vowed never to be to other people? Did you honor that? Did you have negative experiences that imprinted on you that now creep up and seep out in your leadership? Like, those are deep questions, right? To ask how we are, because we are imprinted. We are affected by those imprints that are left on us. Those experiences shape us, they guide us, and it's how we interpret those experiences, how we use them, and how we are intentional in how we want to show up. We should stop leading by accident. Elevated leaders don't lead by assumption, right? They're not reactionary and passive and, let's just see what happens. They actually plan, right? You think about the leader you are in your role, whatever role that is, around your technical construction components of your task. You would never just leave it to chance, right? No way. Can you imagine that? We're going to build this multi-million-dollar project. No schedule. Yeah, budget, whatever you want. Yeah, quality control, just wing it. We would never do that, right? That seems ridiculous. Yet we do that in our leadership when we lead our teams, when we lead our people, right? So this idea around using those experiences to shape us. So I want you to do this right now, okay? You can close your eyes if you want and keep them open. I want you to think of one leader who shaped who you are today, good or bad, whatever comes to mind. Right? Just go with kind of whoever pops in first, because that's probably the person, right? Maybe it was your past boss. Maybe it's your boss now. Maybe it's somebody from a different company that you're not at. Maybe it was your grandpa, right? I use this exercise a lot, but put that person in your head right now. What did they do that is shaping the leader you are today? Did they provide an amazing experience? Did they make you feel a certain way? And that's how you want to make others feel? Or that imprinted on you so greatly that that's how you like to show up? Was it something negative? And you just had a horrific traumatic experience under that leadership. And you now know that you do not want to provide that for others. And so you go out of your way to do the opposite. That's somebody that impacted your leadership, right? Think of that person right now and just pull to the surface of your brain 1 or 2 traits or qualities that that person brought, good or bad, that has impacted your leadership. When I do this exercise, I can't help but always think about my person. And some of you in this room know that person. Actually, probably a lot of you know that person. But I had a leader that was so impactful in shaping how I show up and how I teach this stuff, actually. Right? He advocated for me. Not every leader's done that. He pushed me, challenged me, held me accountable, held me capable. Right? He knew I could do it before I knew I could do it. Right? This idea of believing in me. Right? I also had a really shitty leader. That comes to mind whenever I do this exercise. And they didn't build trust. And so trust is like a huge part of me. They weren't authentic, kind of phony, a little bit fake. And so that idea about being authentic and real is important to me. And so that shaped my leadership. Totally voluntary, but shout out a trait or quality of your person if you're willing to. You don't have to say their name, you don't have to say nothing, just shout out the trait or quality. Straightforward. Patient. Allowed you to make mistakes. They were caring. They made time for you. So you think about those traits and qualities, and if you didn't shout them out, just think about the ones that your leader provided for you. How are you using those in your leadership? Is that important to you? Right? Are you being intentional in your decisions on how you want to incorporate some of those traits into the leader that you are for the experience that others get working alongside you, whether they're your direct reports or not? We don't spend a lot of time consciously thinking about the traits and qualities that we want to bring to our leadership team, how we bring them. So I want you to pick one now. Choose one trait or quality that is important to you. Maybe it's the one you thought of when you thought of your leader. Maybe it's one that was shouted out and you're like, well, that's a good one. I don't think I do that very much. Patience is a good one, right? A lot of people want to provide that in their leadership, but let's be honest, a lot of us don't. Or we do, but not consistently. We're patient with everyone except Fred. That guy's an asshole, right? So maybe that trait or quality that's important to you is ask yourself, what would be the evidence that I'm doing it? Right? Think about that. If I was being patient with Fred, what would that look like? If you have to deal with whoever your team is or what you're thinking about, or if you've got a tough meeting coming up or a tough conversation coming up, think about that trait or quality that's important to you, that you think will evolve your leadership, and ask yourself right now, what is the evidence that I'm doing that in my leadership when I talk to that guy this afternoon, when I'm dealing with that situation tomorrow, when I have to address this, when I'm assigning this? That's elevated leadership, okay? When you think of elevated leaders, I talked about this idea that I don't believe that they're reactionary or passive or let's just see what happens. When I think of an elevated leader, an amazing leader, when I think of my person, you think of yours now, do they plan? Do they strategize? Are they intentional? Do they set goals? Right? Do they visualize the path? Do they see the way forward? Okay? Do they view information as power? Do they gather intel? Think about this. We do this in our technical roles, right? We gather information. We pull documentation. We ask questions of our client, right? So that we can then make the best decisions going forward in our technical work. But think about that from a leadership perspective. For those of you that have teams that manage and supervise people, are you gathering information and intel from them on what they need to be successful, on how they communicate best, on what motivates them, on what engages them, on what disengages them, what they hate about their job, what they love about their job? Shit, have you asked your people what their goal is and why they work there? Think about the value of knowing or having access to that information, on how that could impact or influence how you lead them, or how you talk to them, or how you understand them, or how you appreciate them. Okay? So this idea around paying attention, looking ahead, gathering information as nourishment, as intel. Okay? We do this all the time in the technical aspect, but not so much with our people. So this is as simple as doing what you just did around contemplating those traits or those qualities that you wish to bring to your team. It's as simple as asking yourself before that meeting that you have with Fred, before that conversation you have with that trade, how do I want to do this? Who do I need to be in this conversation? My favorite one, at the end, how will I know it's been a success? How are ways that we can gather information or intel? First of all, do you believe information's power? The more information you have, the more strategic you can be. So how do we gather that information or that intel when it comes to the leadership that people need from us? What do you think? It's not in the contract, by the way. Yeah, it's not in your plans or your drawings. It's not there. Communicate. Ask. When's the last time you asked someone for feedback? on what you could be doing to help them be more successful. Imagine when's the last time your boss asked you that? When's the last time somebody that worked alongside you, your colleague from another department, asked you, hey, what do you need from me to make your job easier, or to help you be successful, or to get X done? Right? Those are powerful questions, right? And then imagine the answers, okay? Important questions that are intentional to ensure that you're intentional. All right, I know it's morning and this might not look appetizing. I apologize. But how are you leading like a blueberry bison meatball? What? Right? So I've been, over the last few years, competing in fitness competitions. And when it gets really close to my competition date, my personal trainer gives me a very strict meal plan. And usually there's like 6 things I can eat on that meal plan. This isn't sustainable. You do this for like a week or 2 weeks. And I remember getting really bored of eating the same things prepared the same ways. And one day I thought, shit, what if I mix it all together? I've got bison on my list, blueberries, spinach, and sweet potatoes. Right? Ew. What if I make that into a meatball? And I did, and what was surprising was these were really good. Drizzled some sugar-free maple syrup over them. Yummy. Right? But I got thinking, this is about diversity, right? This is about taking what's unexpected and mixing it together and seeing what happens, right? When does this happen in our work settings? When do you have a blueberry, bison, spinach, and sweet potato? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, your team. All of you got a blueberry right now. All of you got a spinach. All of you got a sweet potato, right? Like, these are the people, the members of your team. Right? No team is all blueberries. Right? No project is all spinach. Right? I'm killing this analogy. Come on, right? Yeah. So this idea around no two situations call for the exact same leadership from you. Ooh, here's the twist. Right? No two team members require the exact same leadership from you. Your teams are diverse, your worlds are diverse, your projects are diverse. Shit, your days are diverse. Right? Change is constant, so adaptation is key. Being flexible is essential. The agile leader is the elevated leader. The rigid leader is not. Right? So this stupid little meatball really made me think about how am I using key ingredients to make something unexpected and amazing. So this idea around looking at how well are you leveraging your people? These are questions I want you to ask. These are coaching questions I would ask if you were my one-on-one client. How well are you leveraging your people? Are you in tune with who they are? Do you know them? What are their strengths? Think about your people right now. Pick one guy, one person, and ask yourself right now, what's he good at? What's his strengths? Do I know? Bring that to your brain right now. What's their challenges? What does he struggle with? What's his biggest gap or her biggest gap? Put that in your head right now. Let's take the important question. Do I know what their goal is? Why do they work here? Why do they do this job? What's important to them? What do they value? These are big questions, right? How many of you right now are like, I know my guy? Yep, answering these, no problem, Jenny. How many of you are like, oh, I don't really know them? Or some of these are assumptions or they're guesses, right? I'm not sure. No hand up means what? Right? Undecided, don't know. I don't want to put my hand up because I don't want to be called on, right? Yeah. Now pick another guy and do the same thing, right? The reality is we know some of our people a lot better than some others, correct? Yeah. Who do you know the most? People you like, people you're aligned with, people that are similar to you. The people we tend to not get to know or don't know are people that are vastly different from us. It's the blueberry and the bison. Who the hell puts those two things together? Well, every team probably has those two people. Okay? So how am I leveraging those people? How am I taking those differences and appreciating them, understanding them and appreciating them? Here's what we know about team effectiveness. Here's what we know about amazing high-performing teams. They're not all made up of exactly the same people. Those teams suck. It might seem like it's good because we're all getting along. We all agree really fast. But diverse teams, research shows, those are the more high-performing teams if the leader can appreciate those differences and bring those people together. So not to, kill this analogy, but what are you putting together? What are your ingredients? What are you cooking up? Right? You might be surprised. These were awesome. My family wanted to barf. They were like, that is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. I said, taste it. And they were like, wow, those are actually pretty good. If anybody wants the recipe, I have it with me. Okay. So here's the interactive part of today. Okay. I took this really cool picture. This is a cool picture, right? I snapped this little guy on my patio door last summer. Okay. Outside of it being a pretty neat picture, it got me thinking about leadership, of course. So I want you to just think about this right now. Look at that picture of that little frog and ask yourself, what does this image say to you about leadership? Or what does this image say to you about the leader that you are, or about your leadership? So I just want you to think about that right now. We're tapping into the creative juices kind of early. You might not have had enough coffees to do this yet, but I want you just to kind of contemplate and allow your brain to go there. Okay? So think about, what does this picture signify to you about leadership or about your leadership? Okay. I'm going to hold your thoughts for 1 second. I love it. Hold those for a second. Here's what I want you to do. We're just going to take a couple minutes. I just want you to turn to the person beside you, ideally find somebody you don't know, and tell them what this signifies for you. Okay? I'm going to give you just a couple minutes to do that so both of you share. There's no right answer or wrong answer, by the way. This is super safe to do. Go ahead. Join, turn around, talk to this guy, include him. Okay? You two together, front row guys, right there. Okay? You guys back there, share. Okay? You two. Camera guy, you guys, join them. Okay. All right, I want to hear some of these. Who said hanging on for dear life? Anybody ever feel like that in their leadership? Just like clinging to it, like just hopefully they'll survive this? Right? Okay, what else? Panic. Okay, anybody in their leadership feel moments of panic? Mm-hmm.
I had a different reaction.
Yeah.
Mine was one more of, I guess, intrigue or wonderment. I mean, the fact that this frog has decided it wants to attach itself
Yeah.
at night, and there's more peril. I mean, obviously, we think there's more peril at night than there would be during the day. So I thought
Yeah.
it was something more positive than
Okay.
something of an emergency.
Okay. Yeah. As you said that, I came to my mind like this curiosity or this intrigue, right? And then risk, because it's night. I cropped the picture, right? There's like bugs and all kinds of crap that also was attracted to the light. Yeah. He probably was eating, but yeah. Okay. What else? Patience. How come? Waiting. Yeah. What else? What were some other things you shared? He's got a good grip. It was also windy. So this was quite entertaining to watch him because there were moments where I was like, no, he's going. And yeah. So this grip. Anybody? He's gripping and going up. And what's that? Was that signify to leadership?
Well, I think that as a leader, you have a certain level of control, but you're always striving to do better.
Yeah. So even just this picture signifying you evolving in your own leadership, right? What else? What were some other things that you shared? Yes. Okay. Yeah. And what would the other side signify for you? Yeah. And at many angles, right? I love this. What else? Something over here, this side. I'm not going to pick on no one. I was going to pick on someone I know, but I won't do that. What else? What did you share? How does this represent leadership? Yeah. Yeah. So much happening, right? Like, how many of you feel like that in your leadership, right? Like trying to get a handle on all the things, the multiple things. And here's the reality too. A lot of leaders just focus on all the tangibles, right? Like the task, the deadlines, the meetings, the deliverables. And we forget that our people are one of those things as well, right? Not just people broad. Fred, Sally, Steve, Sue, Mohammed, like all the people on my team, right? Are individual things that are part of how I need to lead, okay? So this idea, I put a few up in case you guys were like crickets. I was like, what if they don't say anything? Could it signify a sense of sure-footedness? This was almost to the positive that, I heard from some of you, right? This idea like, I got it, right? Could this signify the value of being vulnerable and exposed, right? This is an interesting angle, right? Like the underbelly is exposed, right? You want to know, when I teach the leadership work that I do, I always talk about trust, right? And I always show an image of a house that's collapsing. And when you think about leadership and your roles, there's so many things that go into being a great leader, right? Setting goals, delegating, motivating and engaging people, all of these, giving feedback, there's all these skills. But when I think about building a house or building a structure and all the components that go into building that structure, what's the first thing we have to do to ensure that that structure is solid? Right, where my foundation be, right? We have to pour foundation, okay? And so I put this picture up of a house like almost ready to collapse. And if we envision that the foundation of our team is trust, and then maybe the walls are setting goals, maybe the windows are feedback, maybe the roof is delegating properly, right? If the trust is there, all of those components come together seamless, and it creates a solid structure. Let's imagine we just say, I'm not gonna pour the foundation. Let's skip that step, they're too expensive, right? We're not gonna do that. We're just gonna go ahead and erect our walls. We're gonna put in the fancy windows. We're gonna put the roof on. And like the image, I usually show what happens to our house or our structure over time. Collapses, right? Leans, crumbles, falls apart. And that's the same as leading a team with no trust, right? Because when we delegate stuff, when we put those fancy walls in, it's met with skepticism. Oh, they're setting me up to fail. Or I'm not gonna do that. I don't trust them. We put the windows in. Maybe that's the feedback we give the guy. Again, good or bad feedback, it's met with skepticism. It's met with doubt, right? So ask yourself this question right now. How vulnerable and exposed am I being? Because we know that a way to create trust, in addition to being consistent and doing what you say you do and all those things, is to be transparent, is to show vulnerability. When you think of that amazing leader you thought of earlier that helped shape who you are today, how many of you, when you think about that person, would say, and I think somebody shouted it out, they admitted when they were wrong. They admitted their mistakes. When I think of my person, he did that. And then he would ask me my opinion. That's vulnerability. That's exposing the underbelly. That's the little kitty cat looking in the mirror and not having the lion projected back, but the cat, right? Being authentic and real. Okay? Perhaps this image is signifying and representing the constant climb and the reach that leaders need to make. That came up, right? The growth, right? Does it evoke the feeling of trying to hang on, of gripping to something? Support, okay? So this idea around contemplating some of these things is requiring us to pause and requiring us to take notice. Okay. I snapped a picture of this guy when I was visiting my son in Chicago. He's at school there. And I was driving back from his campus to the hotel. And I pulled over because I just was mesmerized, right? And sometimes obvious things create us to pause and take notice, right? A sky like this isn't difficult to notice, right? At work, there are major things that pop up or happen that force us to pause and take notice. It's usually when things go bad, right? It's usually when, we get the angry, irate email from the client, or it might be when a team member's threatening to quit, right? That just stops us in our tracks. But I think elevated leaders pause and take notice in those moments when there isn't anything mesmerizing to make us do that. So what moments might those be? When is it most important as leaders to stop and pause and take notice? Anybody ever feel on autopilot? Anybody ever go to work and just feel like you're just kind of going through the motions in your role or with your people? Right? We usually do this when we're busy. We usually do this when we're stressed. I could ask this question as a parent. How many of you feel you're just an autopilot, right? Like when we think about it at home, it's like, yeah, right? When would it be important in those moments to pause and take notice? When might that be most helpful? What could we see when we actually stop and pause and notice and look up, right? I always talk about, when I'm working with leaders, around reading their people, paying attention to their people. We talked earlier with a series of questions around, do you know their strengths? Do you know their weaknesses? Do you know their goals? And those are things we could ask them. But there's this amazing skill we have as humans, the power of observing, right? That's pausing and taking notice, right? In a meeting, looking around and looking at your team. What are they doing? What behaviors are they showing? What patterns are you noticing, right? That gives you information maybe of how they need to be led or how you could create those conditions for them to be successful. If we go super deep, how are you pausing and taking notice of yourself, right? Even, I call this my redo game, and I use this a lot with my coaching clients, is when you do something, okay? You attend a meeting, you have a conversation, you perform that work, you do that task. Just taking like a few seconds after to ask yourself a couple questions. How did that go? What went well? What was shit? If I could redo it over, would I do anything different? And that isn't, you don't have to light a candle and get into a meditative state to do that. Like that literally is you walking from the meeting room back to your office. That's you getting in your truck from the job site to drive to the next job site. Like that's how quick you can play that game. And that's you building this habit of pausing, taking notice, self-assessing, and becoming deeper in your self-awareness, which is really what this whole hour has been about. Okay? So as we get close to the end, because I think we are, this is what I want you to contemplate, okay? Is what's next? I found this, it's actually a book, like a, what's that called? A bookend, like a thing that holds up your books. I found it at some thrift store. It's in the and sign. And I saw it and I thought, oh, where am I going to use that? I don't need that. But I loved it because it reminded me of what I am always doing as a coach, is I'm always asking, and what else, right? And so I wanted to put this in here because these coaching questions that you've been asked, these visual prompts, has something triggered or struck in terms of your leadership and how you're showing up. What's your and? Right? Has this initiated new thoughts, new ideas, a search for an answer or a deeper awareness about yourself or about Fred or about somebody else on your team? Has it created an and for you to follow through on? Right? Ask yourself, what's next? What's more? What's my takeaway? What's my action? What's my intention? Okay? Here, I don't know if you're going to more sessions, okay? But the elevated leader comes into the session today with asking that powerful question. When this is over, how will I know it's been successful? When this is done, when I leave this session, how will I know it was value for me? What do I want to get from it? Right? So setting that intent before something starts. But even if you forget that piece, when it's over, asking yourself, what did I get from that? What's one thing I'm taking away? If you're going to another session after this, I invite you to do that for that session. You'll have a richer experience. It will be time well spent. It will impact how you show up after in your regular day-to-day, right? So getting in this habit of doing this. So it may be an intent, it may be a goal, it may be an action. Maybe it's to listen to yourself. Maybe it's to ask these questions. Maybe it's to solicit feedback. Maybe it's to engage in discussion. Maybe it's to be a bit more vulnerable. Adopt the phrases. Tell me more. What else? When you ask people questions, when you're trying to solicit feedback and they start talking, the first thing most of us do if it's stuff we don't like is what? Defend, justify, jump in, give them the answer, solve it. I encourage you to just ask this one time, even if you know the answer, even if you know they're wrong, even if you don't like what they said. I dare you to just ask, tell me a bit more about that. What else? Keep them talking. That's you gathering information. That's you collecting intel. Those of you that have kids, you can try it tonight, okay? If you're stuck here all day at the conference, right? Use it when you're networking. Engage with somebody. Hey, my name's so-and-so. We haven't met yet. What do you do? They tell you a bit about what they do in their company. Before you jump in and tell them about you, ask them. Tell me a bit more about that. Like what kind of work are you doing? What else? And keep them going. Collect information. Okay? Don't worry, you're not like an interrogator. Like eventually you'll share, but like engage in that practice of collecting that information. So what's your and? What's your intention? What's your takeaway? Okay? This idea around what legacy are you leaving behind? This entire hour has been around elevating your leadership. We did it in a different way. We did it through some visual prompts. We did it through some coaching questions. This has been about you. It's about your mindset. How fixed is it, or do you believe your role is selfless? That's what creating conditions of success for others is. It's selfless leadership, not selfish leadership. Selfless. Here's the actual reality of that. If you are selfless in your leadership and you create those conditions for other people to be amazing and to thrive, guess who looks great too? You. Right? So this idea around your success and how you can influence and create conditions. This has been a deeper dive, hopefully, into some self-awareness, some things that normally we wouldn't ask ourselves or take time thinking about, engaging in these questions in our thinking around leadership and how we'd like to show up. It was a taste of coaching. It was a taste of self-coaching. At the risk of never getting another coaching client, we all should be coaches to ourselves. Okay? Pausing and asking those questions. Okay? Taking time to sit with the question, to sit with the answer, to explore it, to allow it to elevate the leaders we are and the people we are, the humans that we are. Okay? Consider what you're leaving behind. Consider the imprint, not at the end of your career, but at the end of every interaction you have with someone. Right? Think about that. What imprint do you want to have? What imprint are you leaving? What would you be proud to leave? Okay? So that's all for this morning. Please stop by before you go. Say hi. Let me know what resonated with you. Take something away from today. So actually contemplate that before you leave here, because as you leave here, it's going to get really busy out there. Okay? And this is going to start to dissipate. So for this to be time well spent, what was one question that resonated with you? One answer you brought to your brain that you think might be worth more thinking? An insight maybe that I shared or somebody in the room shared that has you thinking about something? Okay? If you are looking to enhance your leadership, you're considering a coach, you want to know more about coaching, or your organization has training needs around leadership development, please come by and stop and chat with me. I'd love to discuss the topic with you further. Don't worry, I'm not a salesy person. I'm not going to try and sell you anything. I just love to talk about this kind of stuff. Also, feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. I post leadership questions and coaching questions that you can continue to do this in a few seconds of your day if that interests you. So I thank you for your time and really appreciate your attention and choosing to come today. Enjoy the rest of the conference.